Welcome to the Explainer. Today we're diving into a really powerful idea in economics, the standard model of trade. We're going to see how, by working together, countries can end up way better off than they could ever be on their own.
It's a really good question. Why don't big countries just make everything they need? Let's try and build the answer from the ground up, looking at a few key building blocks.
All right, so step one, we have to figure out what a country is even capable of producing by itself. Let's call this its production menu.
This is really the core challenge of all economics, right? You've only got so much land, so many workers, so much time. A country can't make everything, so it has to make some tough choices.
Okay, so think about it like this. To build your first few cars, you might only have to give up a tiny bit of wheat production. Easy enough. But what happens when you want to build a lot of cars? Well, eventually you have to start turning your absolute best farmland into factories. Now you're sacrificing a whole lot of food for each new car. That's what we call increasing opportunity cost.
And this curve you see here, the Production Possibility Frontier, or PPF, is the perfect picture of that trade-off. See how it's bowed outwards? It's not a straight line because, well, farmland isn't great for building factories, and factory workers might not be the best farmers. The steepness of that curve tells you exactly how much you're giving up. Okay, on to our second building block. It's not just about what a country can make, it's also about what its people actually want.
So, we can map this out with something called a community indifference curve. Just think of it as a country's national wish list. Any point along a single one of these curves makes the country equally happy.
Now, obviously, the goal for any country is to get to the highest possible wish list curve they can. That's curve 3, way out there. It means more happiness, more satisfaction for everyone. The big question is, how on earth do you get there?
Okay, now let's put our two pieces together, the production menu and the national wish list, and see what happens when a country is totally isolated, living in its own little bubble.
This is our before picture. The technical term is autarky, but it just means being completely self-sufficient. In this world, if you want to consume something, you have to produce it yourself. Period.
So look at this. Without trade, a country is just plain locked in. It can only consume what it produces. It finds this little sweet spot at point A where its production menu just barely touches the highest wish list it can reach. But that's it. It can't go any further. That is the absolute best it can do all by itself.
But this is where things get really interesting. We're about to pop that bubble and introduce the ultimate game changer, international trade. This is what unlocks a whole new level of prosperity. All of a sudden, a country isn't limited by its own little production menu anymore.
And right here, this is the magic of trade. Just look, both nations jump from their old spots, A and A prime, to these new, much better points, E and E prime. They are now on a higher satisfaction curve, that's curve 3, which was totally impossible to reach before. Everybody wins.
It almost seems too good to be true, doesn't it? But the logic is incredibly powerful. It all comes down to a country leaning into its strengths. Let's really break down how this works. So here's the secret sauce. Production and consumption get separated. The country focuses all its energy on producing at point Q, doing what it does best. But then, through trade, it gets to consume all the way over at point C, a point that used to be completely out of reach. It's now consuming a mix of goods it could never, ever have made on its own. This quote really nails it. The whole reason this works is because things cost different amounts to make in different places. If you can make cars cheaper than I can, and I can grow wheat cheaper than you can, that very difference creates a huge opportunity for us to trade and both come out way ahead.
So the difference is just night and day. In isolation, you're stuck. What you make is what you get. But with trade, you shatter those limits. You can produce one thing and trade for a totally different mix of things that makes your people way happier. Okay, now that you've seen the whole model, let's put you in the driver's seat. Time for you to put on your economist hat and analyze the situation.
Take a good look at this graph. Just by looking at it, how can we tell that Nation 1 is better at making good X? The answer is hidden right there in the slope of that price line.
So remember, the slope of that straight line touching point A, that represents the domestic price. The steepness of that line is telling us everything we need to know.
And here's the key. A flatter price line means the good on the bottom axis, good X, is relatively cheap for them to make. A steeper line would mean it's expensive. So, because Nation 1's line is flatter, that's our signal. It's practically shouting that they have a comparative advantage in producing good X.
And that, right there, is the fundamental, amazing takeaway from the standard trade model. When countries specialize in trade, they create more value and well-being together than they could ever hope to achieve apart. It really is a win-win.
Of course, this simple model gives us that beautiful core logic, but the real world is always messier, right? Things like technology, transportation costs, or even global politics can completely change the game, which leaves us with a lot more to explore. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.